Welcome to Recap Our Studio.
This time around, we're going to review the brilliantly insane film Brightburn. Warning, the plot will be spoiled. Our tale now begins in the rural town of Breyer at 143 Breyer, a huge family home. We learnt initially that this couple is attempting to have a family but is having difficulty. They've just started making out with a lady they know only as. After Tori sends her husband Kyle a message asking whether he feels anything, he walks out of the house. And the narrative ends with the statement that whatever it was has ended. The lights flicker and then go out as there is a thunderous crash. A dim, red, pulsing light may be seen through the glass, located some distance away. After seeing it, Kyle turns to his wife and asks, "What is that?" Then a collection of home movies play. A little kid is followed on film from infancy through childhood. As a newborn, he is able to sit up and kick his legs. He is first shown sitting up in his high chair, then crawling about on the floor, and then, when he is a little older, riding a toy tractor with his father. 10 years have passed and the family is still in the same house. However, it seems sloppy and untidy at the moment. Tori, now aware that her son's name is Brandon, searches fruitlessly around the home for him. When she doesn't find him in his room after telling him to get ready for school, she starts looking elsewhere in the home and ultimately ends up at the dilapidated barn outside. She whistles while she searches for something, and after hearing his response, she continues on inside the barn. In an all-too-familiar jump scare, he scares not only his mother but also the viewers with a supposed terror that turns out to be nothing. Do I dare say that ghostly figure? Nope. A youngster at play, nothing more, nothing less. Sorry. Even after telling him he's too old for such treatment, he continues to smother him and otherwise treat him like a baby. Mother and kid go outside, where they are greeted by Father Kyle, who tells Brandon he shouldn't be playing in the barn because of all the sharp boards and nails. Then, we see Brandon's attire in more detail, a white robe adorned with tiny rocket ships. It all makes sense now that you put it that way. Now, the parents adore their kids so much that they behave as helicopter parents, treating him like he is much younger than he is. They return home, where Kyle suggests preparing waffles for breakfast. If you have an allergy to bees, this may be a trigger for you. The bees are then seen in an extremely close-up. Now, go see Brandon in his classroom. After displaying a film on bees and wasps to her pupils, the instructor turned off the screen and moved on to a lecture on the subject's fundamentals. And over here, Brandon is sketching some cryptic symbols. And when the instructor asks whether anybody can tell the difference between bees and wasps, nobody speaks up, likely because they weren't paying attention. Unlike the other students, Brandon offers the right answer while doodling on his paper, to the delight of his teacher. The pollinators are being preyed upon by the wasps. When asked to elaborate on the distinction between the two, he goes on to elaborate needlessly. So, naturally, the audience rapidly becomes bored and starts secretly evaluating him. Except for that big kid who always speaks trash about him and calls him a maggot since he is constantly in the spotlight, no one seems to care about him. The other students are laughing at Brandon's lame joke, but the girl sitting in front of him is trying to boost his spirits. There was genuine hilarity among the crowd. And the humor didn't land. Okay, later that evening, Brandon is home and it is dark outside. Tori checks on him and finds him sound sleeping in his bed. Relieved that he is safe and sound, she goes downstairs and starts painting on a canvas about how she is an artist. We should all make an effort to express our creative side at least once. In spite of your lack of skill. More and more studies show that engaging with creative expression improves cognitive performance and mood. Meanwhile, outside, Tori is painting and listening to music, something evil is brewing. From behind several locked wooden doors, a red light starts to illuminate, and an ominous voice can be heard. Tori's music starts to warp and the lights within the home start to flicker. Totally unfazed, she shuts off the music and keeps on painting as he sleeps soundly in the center of his bed, on his back, in the upstairs bedroom. Who the hell does that? Apparently Brandon is having a seizure, or maybe he is possessed. After listening to the eerie muttering for a while, he gets out of bed and walks up to the window. Oh my gosh, don't leap that, oh wait, he's already jumped down the stairs. Tori, who was already uneasy, is now certain that she heard something. What the heck is she painting, though? Almost like a work of abstract art. While she checks the outside for any abnormalities. The swing was swaying ever so slightly. She returns inside, presuming that Brandon has managed to sneak outside and is now playing. Tori seemed to be a bit more worried. But when the Flash sprints up behind her, she now, in the dead of night, he starts calling for Brandon as he walks toward the barn. She then notices that he is on his knees, making odd sounds, and attempting to unlock the chain door, which has transformed into a trap door of some kind. After a moment of startle, he is back to being himself until she touches his shoulder and he suddenly jumps to his feet. He doesn't recognize his surroundings, so he clings to his mother for comfort. She reassures him that he must have been sleepwalking, but then she glances at the ominous chain doors. This is when she carries him back to his room and tucks him in. In a moment that can only be characterized as cringeworthy, we see some really juvenile wallpaper and the mother sings the song, "Don't Worry" to him. She then proceeds to pet him while he sleeps, much like a dog. The eerie noises continued back in the barn. Now Kyle has shown up, having apparently returned home from work, and is concerned about how things are going. When he asks Tori how everything is, she assures him everything is okay. Moreover, she has concluded that he was probably sleepwalking. But she informs him that Brandon wasn't in the barn but rather in the basement, suggesting that maybe both parents are in on a secret. If he was in the barn, why doesn't she simply notify her husband? Okay, I suppose we'll find out. They retire for the night. Brandon helped his dad mend the door the following morning. Actually, I find it surprising that they are allowing him to stay up there. The father is so near that he's holding a drill. Oh, forget it. Thanks to his protective gloves, he is perfectly secure. However, Dad isn't allowed to wear them. Weird. Kyle pauses his work and offers Brandon a candy bar. He goes on to describe how, when Brandon was an infant and they had just adopted him to prove that he is not their biological kid, he would give him a piece of candy to calm him down whenever he cried. You know, a baby may choke, and I'm no expert, but it seems really risky. Whatever, you know. The closest thing to a baby in my life is my cat. When Brandon inquires as to the efficacy of this strategy, his father speculates that it must have been successful since his son did not grow up to be a horrible person. Do you also hear what I hear? Kyle ruffles his son's hair in what may be seen as a prophetic gesture, and the two go their own ways to tend to various tasks around the farm. Brandon, meantime, attempts to start up the lawnmower. Is it safe for him to use that? He might really damage himself. Because he hasn't figured out how to make it work, it doesn't matter. Then a shocking turn of events occurs that nobody could have ever predicted. When he finally had enough of that mover, he throws it over the fence and into the vast open field beyond. What the hell just happened to me? Can we even survive that? He tossed that item quite afar. Because the sequence was so hilarious, I had to watch it many times. He is just as perplexed as the rest of us, but you have to put in your time nonetheless. And for some reason, maybe because the voice has commanded him to do it, he approaches it when it is lying on its back with its blades whirling. He places his hand where the blades can get it, but instead of losing fingers to the blades, he breaks them. So, he and his mom end up spending some quality time together in a restaurant, where they can play arcade games. Also, the fact that he ends up winning one of those claw machines makes the movie seem incredibly improbable. And I'm calling BS on the whole situation, too. That means that today is, presumably, his birthday. Oh, look, the Tori family is joined by Noah's wife Marilee's brother and his wife's family as well. Brandon has the waitress bring him dessert, and he complains that it's too sweet and only suitable for children. He blows out one candle as his loved ones praise about how brilliant he is and how far he's come academically. In America, no one hands Kyle a gun, and he is not pleased about it. Brandon is a youngster, he tells him. And Brandon isn't satisfied with that reply since, he tells us he's 12. That makes sense, and it's good that you got rid of that gun. It's clear why Brandon is angry with you now. The incident marks the first time Brandon has ever protested his father's generosity, and his parents, understandably perturbed by their son's unexpected outburst, take him home when he requests the return of the present. As the rest of the family leaves the restaurant, Marilee and Noah linger behind, where they are subjected to the open hostility of the other diners. They return home and discuss how out of character Brandon's antics were before turning to shared childhood memories. Tori said that she didn't want Brandon to go through the same thing her parents did to her. She hopes he can have a happier, more carefree upbringing than she had. They discussed going camping and then moved on to more intimate topics. Awkward. Soon after this, probably the following day. It looks like they're getting ready to go on a camping trip. On the other hand, things take a turn for the worst when Brandon fails to see his father eating and, seconds later, the old man realizes his son has been chewing on his fork and, bent it with his teeth. Just contemplating that gives me a sharp pain in my chest. Kyle, who is naturally worried, climbs to Tori's floor to talk to her. Whoever it is searching Brandon's room. Parents, listen up. Never do it again. It's an extreme invasion of personal space. And in any case, they'll just become better at keeping secrets from you. The situation becomes much more unsettling when they discover his actual porn stockpile. Come on, guys, this is where we're headed. Be like your parents. When was the last time you went into your child's bedroom? If you happen to stumble upon anything similar, return it to its original location as carefully as possible and never mention it again. The situation becomes much more unsettling when they come upon images of human internal organs, however. Perhaps it's unfair to form snap judgments based on appearance alone. Perhaps he merely has aspirations of becoming a physician. Torian, the porn stash you rock is still my favorite. Kyle is eager to speak to him. It's common knowledge that this signifies a family camping trip, during which dad and son get some quality one-on-one time to do some hunting. Things seem to grow even more uncomfortable. Do not stop, continue skipping. When Tori finally comes to, she discovers that Brandon has vanished. Brandon's admirer is now being tormented by her laptop, which is preventing her from focusing on anything else. That's what you get for stacking books on top, however. She screams for her mother, and her mother comes running into the room to comfort her before checking the open windows and finding no one. Asked by her mother who she saw, the child responds, Brandon Breyer, which her mother finds oddly precise but accepts. That implies, "You must be kidding me." In a word, it was pitch black. Tori has returned to the forest without her kid. She and Kyle started looking for him, and he appeared out of nowhere. They say he went out to use the restroom. You guys really need to cool it. The following day at school, Tori confides in her sister Mary Lee, who also serves as the school counselor, about her worries about her son, and Mary Lee assures her that she should not worry since Brandon is only going through this phase of life. Comforted by this news, Tori, many thanks to you, sir. And then she sneaks up behind her kid and sees him sketching more of the same symbols. Having a child create sinister drawings is essential to every good horror film. After Brandon fools her into thinking he has hidden his artwork, the two of them leave for home. Later that night, when Brandon and Kyle have gone to bed, Kyle is startled to learn that Brandon has been using his newly developed evil skills to mentally torture the hens. He almost shoots him in the process. As soon as he leaves the house, he discovers that they are all dead. The pair is now debating possible outcomes. Kyle accuses Brandon, but Tori says the wolf you had there is to blame since it managed to take the latch off the door. In gym class the following day, Brandon fractures his crush's hand in a fit of rage when she labels him a pervert. She was referring to the first time she laid eyes on him in the middle of the night in her bedroom. If and only if the parents know about it. When Brandon defends her, the girl's mother labels him a monster and demands that he be arrested. Dropped by Karen. This mom, whose real name is Caitlin, finally blows off some steam. Tori sincerely apologizes, and the couple ultimately decides to take Brandon home with them. Now, Brandon's parents had a creepy conversation about how he's never hurt himself before, never bled, and never broken a bone, despite the fact that every youngster does these things from time to time. Obviously, young people are impulsive and often at a loss for alternatives. When Tori needs advice, she turns to Google. In the meanwhile, Brandon has followed the sound of additional voices back out into the pouring rain to the trapdoor. He redoubles his efforts to undo the shackles, and this time is able to free himself by using just his hands. So Tori, seeing the red light from inside the home, dashes out to the barn full of excellent goods, where she finds herself surrounded by the brilliant red light, floating weightlessly while repeating the words, "Take, take, take," over and over again. Snap a photo right as she runs over to hug him. For the first time in his life, he sustains an injury after a fall. Later, he turns to his mom and asks, "Who am I?" as Tori tries to reassure him. As a result, Tori now fills Brandon in on his origin tale. In the void of space. He arrived just like Superman would from outer space. In addition, she claims that he came in, implying that he discovered their secret. It's a tiny spacecraft. Curious, did his robe have any kind of spatial patterning in the previous scene? Excellent focus on detail. Upon hearing this, Brandon loses it, yells at his parents that he hates them, and breaks some things before storming out of the house. That's when he informs Kyle that he's located the spaceship they'd been trying to conceal from him. And then, just as things were getting exciting, Brandon finished the sentence he had been trying to say the whole time: "Take the world while my eyes turn red and I go Super Saiyan." She is obviously afraid of him, what with her hand being shattered and all, and the crushing net he has cast over her. And after exchanging a few words with her, he abruptly leaves the diner we saw earlier without so much as a backwards glance. When the waitress looks up to see the ominous symbols that Brandon has scrawled all over the windows, a bulb in the ceiling suddenly bursts, and shards of glass fly down and lodge in her eye. For those with a low tolerance for gore or other potentially distressing content, I must issue a trigger warning. You may want to turn away now because she's staggering about in agony and confusion while wielding a bat and then rushing away to hide in the fridge. But Brandon, in true Superman fashion, uses the door as a blade to slash through it and assault her. Here we are the next morning. The prevalence of the name Brandon is unnerving. For understandable reasons, his parents are on edge. Now, once again, at the restaurant. After searching the area, the detectives eventually locate one of the window marks. The waitress's continued existence is referenced briefly. Since Brandon has been calling himself special and superior, the school has decided to have him attend therapy. This will be an uncomfortable first session since Brandon's aunt is his counselor. When Mary Lee returns home later that evening, she starts having Brandon-related nightmares. It started with the lights flickering, and then the alarm blaring a warning that there was activity in the backyard. You've got yourself a pretty high-tech security setup there. Oddly, despite having it, you sleep with the drapes wide open. There's a knock on the aunt's door. While she's opening it, don't touch it. Not only that, but Brandon is present. She indicated she would speak to the sheriff about him during their therapy session, so we threatened her by stating she should not do that under any circumstances. She claims that she must fulfill her professional obligations. Once it happens, Brandon leaves. Mary Lee goes to bed, and her boozy husband eventually gets home. He discovers Brandon cowering in the closet while wearing a terrifying mask, and there's a potentially scary sight in the bathroom mirror. To put it mildly, I was irritated and little disturbed. Instead, it seeks to bring them back with it. Brandon coolly proposes he not inform his parents, puts on his mask again, and uses his superpowers to hurl Noah at the garage door. In his fear, Noah gets in his vehicle and tries to flee, but he doesn't go very far when Brandon wrecks it. After Brandon floats about in the center of the road for a little, he uses his superpowers to lift and flip over a vehicle. Oh, he's really hurt, his teeth are broken from hitting his head so hard on the wheel. Then, Brandon goes home and explains to his parents why he isn't wearing a shirt by drawing more of his creepy symbols around the now crime scene using Noah's blood. The implication is that it will be shocking. Happily, they have enough sense to know he is lying. They continue their discussion of the spaceship and their concerns about what to do next.